I can smell the NFL pigskin in my vicinity. That sounded insane. That sounded almost disgusting. But I can smell. I can smell
that
NFL
pigskin.
I can smell the
Down
NFL
with the
season.
sick gas.
This is going to sound like so much hate, and I swear it's not.
Welcome back to the Warner Brothas Podcast. I am Kyle, joined as always by my brother Keenan. You can see it's football season right here. We got Tim Gray in the building. Timmy G, what's poppin'?
Bearded up Timmy G in the building.
I'm letting it grow out now for a while. I gotta trim it up, not gonna lie.
Oh, go for the.
I'm great. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Getting that Sam Darnold look, and we're getting back to the basics with me, and I'm really excited about it. We're getting back to the list. So, one thing I want to say real quick, Kyle, before you go on with anything you have to say before we get into it. Originally, I was just doing a 1 to 32 or 32 to 1, however you want to showcase that. I now made a tiers list generated because of you. So thank you for that. I got some names for the tiers because I was like, you know what? Got to be just like my brother. So not that I haven't done the tiers list before, but I was just going to do it in list form. But I was like, you know what? Tiers list makes it more fun. So that's what we're going to do. And yeah. So that's my introduction to it. If you want to say anything before, if not, we can get right into it.
So if you've missed a couple episodes, Keenan is alluding to my tier list of the NFL teams, all 32 NFL teams. And Keenan, much like last year, is doing his 32 NFL quarterbacks, starting quarterbacks. Interested to see how this list goes, or this tier list goes, I should say, given that we've got, like every year, a handful of teams that have QB competitions. It could be this quarterback, could be that quarterback, maybe, a bridge type of year like the Patriots. So we've got, again, a handful to several teams much like that. So I'm interested to see how this list goes. If you do want to listen to the NFL tier list, that is up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, as always. Yeah, I can't wait. We are now 2 weeks away. We are ending week 2 of preseason today. It's probably completely over with as we speak. I don't know if there's a game on right now. By the time you hear this, we will be edging towards week 3 of the preseason. And then we have the week off, similar to that anticipation between the week off, between the championship week and the Super Bowl. We now get a full week off between the last week of preseason and the real deal. Yeah. I cannot wait. We've been talking about this way too much, but it's here. I can smell the NFL pigskin in my vicinity. That sounded insane. That sounded almost disgusting, but I can smell.
I can smell that NFL pigskin.
I can smell the
Down
NFL
with the sick
season.
gas.
I can smell the NFL season right around the corner. I cannot wait. I do want to say, while we're still on the topic of tiers, real quick before we segue into Keenan's, I will be updating my tier list probably something like every 4 weeks. So probably coming out of week 4 going into week 5, you'll have my first update of a tier list.
You have your official regular season one, because you always say the preseason is the first 4 weeks, so you'll have like your official regular season, and so that's funny
for sure. Yeah, probably something like week 4, week 8, week 12, which is around Thanksgiving, and then
right before the playoffs, maybe.
Yeah, maybe week 16 and then right before the playoffs. Maybe we'll even do a week 14. Maybe we'll have an extended break from week 8 and then go week 14 and then going into the postseason, obviously. So be on the lookout for that. And without further ado, Keenan, let's get to this. We've been waiting.
I'll be giving my playoff quarterback tiers. That riled up some people last year. And all I want to say is this: people are upset that I had Joe Flacco at 13. Proved out to be 13. My list proved out to be pretty accurate. So I'm just saying, for everyone who hated on that, have fun. But anyways, my list is going to be a music-themed list inspired by us talking about the ludicrous hologram that was behind Kyle last podcast when we did that one. So we're not doing Luda specific. We are going
holographic Luda.
We're holographic Luda. We're going music specific more hip hop, has some R&B, a little pop in there, but we've got some names here. And without further ado, we'll get into this list. Also, if you do have questions as well, I broke it down. I have a top 16 NFC quarterback list and a top 16 AFC quarterback list. That if we have time, I might just read through the names instantly there to help out. But all right. So my first one is I Wonder. Kyle, if you know the Kanye song, I Wonder off of Graduation, that is what this tier is named. And this tier is named I Wonder because I wonder what they're going to be. We don't know what they're going to be yet because they are 3 rookies, and it is Bo Nix, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. That is the bottom 3. I have no basis on how good they're going to be yet. They're people that obviously you've got to see get into the league. So those are the bottom 3, and Bo Nix, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, 32, 31, and 30.
I got a question.
What's up?
Prior to his injury, would Jose Juan McCarthy have been in the bottom 4 per se?
Yes, he would have been. He would have been within that. He would have been within that there. Clearly, the one that's not there is Caleb Williams, and you'll see where he ranks. But clearly, he's not there because he would be there if not. So that is 32, 31, 30. The next 2, 29 and 28, they're in the tier that's called Lose Yourself. Eminem got one chance, one opportunity to seize everything you've ever wanted. And that is 29, we've got Sam Darnold. At 28, we've got Gardner Minshew. And these are 2 quarterbacks I have here because these are 2 people in spots where they are not guaranteed a starting job next year. You have your opportunity to kind of do what Baker Mayfield did when he went Panthers to then the Rams, played well enough to be like, oh, maybe he can start. We see him on the Bucs, and then he just got himself a 3-year, $100 million contract. Are you going to be able to become at least a bridge starter who floats from team to team, or are you going to just end up being a career backup? Especially because J.J. McCarthy's out in Minnesota. Gardner Minshew has been named the starter today. So, stop me at any point.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, especially with the Darnold portion of it. Darnold's fortunate to even be in this position, first of all. He is textbook similar to maybe Sam Bradford. He was a little more safe in the league. We never really got the full Sam Bradford experience. Well, I mean, we did. It was just hella generic, right? He wasn't really like, he wasn't like Darnold, who was super turnover prone. We never really got all the polishedness of Sam Bradford, whereas Darnold is super talented, got all these feats that you can fall in love with. I mean, there was people who even thought, if Brock Purdy were to get injured, that Darnold would have, just as well of a hold on that offense. And, we saw in that Ravens game what happened, I believe, right? And I don't know, there's still a lot of Darnold believers out there, but not enough to, warrant thinking that he's going to be a future starter here. He's still young in his career, but he's had a lot of opportunities, turnover prone. So I definitely agree he is on his last legs for a starter. Minshew, I don't disagree, but I do think he's already kind of been pinned into that career backup mold. Yep. But I mean, he is going to start a job. I think he's always going to be that bridge.
Could do a Geno Smith kind of thing.
Could do a Geno.
To have a second.
Could do a Geno. So. And I see Darnold more in that Geno role with especially with KOC really calling the plays, as Tim said. He'll kind of be whispering to Darnold, but with no McCarthy behind him, he's going to have every reason to keep this job.
Yep. He can fling it. He can fling it. And who cares?
I believe they'll at some point go out and get another backup with, some notoriety to him, like someone we're familiar with, and that'll eventually be his backup. I mean, we saw them do that with Dobbs last year in a quick pinch. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them have someone else backing him up. But yeah, Darnold's going to have a ton of leash this year for sure, and it's kind of crazy in that division. But yeah, I agree.
Yes. I agree. Timmy, any comments before I go to the next one?
I pretty much agree with exactly what Kyle said. I will say that I don't know who is on the depth chart behind Darnold now with J.J. McCarthy being hurt, but I feel like he can't really lose this job. Like, I feel like he can just play terrible all year, and they're just going to sit with it because there's nothing they can really do about it. I think with Gardner, it's tough because I don't think this team's going to throw the ball quite as much as it takes to like prove yourself. So that's a problem. And I think Aiden O'Connell, like at worst, is like, or at best, is just dead even with Gardner. So I don't think it's going to like be
Yeah.
that amazing. So
It's Nick Mullins is the second string, and then Jaron Hall. Then they signed Matt Corral. They signed him. Like
yeah, so nobody, a bunch.
They
like,
don't have anyone that's really even of note.
yeah.
But all right, moving on to the next one. This one has 4 people in it. So we are at 27, 26, 25, and 24. And it's called Leave the Door Open. Shout out Bruno, shout out Anderson Paak. But at 27, it's Deshaun Watson. At 26, it's Daniel Jones. At 25, it's Derek Carr. At 24, it's Geno Smith. These are guys who, if they play well, you can leave the door open for them to be a starter again for your roster this year. If they are bad, they will not be starting quarterbacks in the league next season. In my opinion, I think that should be the case. Sorry,
I got a problem with that statement just because Deshaun is owed $100 million more. So I think
he'll have
he's starting
2 years.
no matter what.
He'll have 2 years left, and I think if he is terrible, that they will probably just have to eat the money and keep it. But the money might make Deshaun stay, but they should not be. I think that they're basically, this is the season for their job, and they're leaving the door open for, you're good enough, stay. If you're not good enough, we're going to replace you next year.
I did see something today. Geno's team, his agents, have approached the Seahawks trying to get a new deal done. He just signed a 3-year deal last year or 2 years ago. So he's only on year 2 of his 3-year deal, but they're trying to get a new one done before the season starts because they're trying to lock him up for a few more years. So this could kind of move him out of this tier if they give him, a 2-year extension with a bunch of guaranteed money. Yes. I could see it pushing him out of this tier because then they're locked in.
Yeah.
Could I hear that tier again, Keenan? I want to hear that.
It is leave the door open from 27 to 24, I believe, and it's Deshaun Watson, Daniel Jones, Derek Carr, Geno Smith.
I think you could make a strong case. I'll talk about Deshaun and Geno in a sec, but I think you could make a strong case for Daniel Jones being in the prior tier. I think this is. I think if this does not go well for him, that he will for sure be a backup somewhere else next year, right? Not necessarily competing, especially if it just goes bad. I mean, we saw that pick 6 yesterday was just atrocious. There was no reason for him to throw that at all. And you don't want to see that.
There were so many Twitter things that said he got waived. To the point where I had to look it up because I hadn't seen anything, and then I went under and it was like Daniel Jones waived. I was like, wait, what? Let me just make sure this isn't true.
I mean, it doesn't seem like it, but correct me if I'm wrong. Is this year 5 or 6 for Daniel Jones? For sure, past 4 years. We might even be going into year 6, which is insane to think.
It is. It's year 6.
It's year 6 for him.
Deshaun Watson, I could see him no matter what happens with this Browns thing, unless he's like completely terrible. I could see him, some bonehead franchise, like talking to themselves into a Deshaun Watson starting quarterback thing. We'll never know. I mean, we'll see this year. I'm actually intrigued.
I try not to prepare for bad organizational work.
No, for sure, But I could.
No, I know you're just.
We've seen people with Deshaun Watson's type of name. I mean, he's got a different situation to him, and then like Tim said, the money, the contract, everything that comes with that. But we have seen people with these names who have no business getting another starting job, and they just get one. So I could see Deshaun going into that realm of his career if it's just another mediocre season. What does interest me with the Browns, and we'll talk about this more in their divisional preview once we get to the Browns and that whole division, they have 2 very quality backups in Jameis Winston and Tyler Huntley. I was shocked to see it because I was curious where Huntley is in the league. I didn't realize that he's no longer on the Ravens, and the fact that he's on the Browns, it makes me wonder if one of those will be in the market for a team like the Vikings. Like I said, if like Darnold goes down, could Jameis be traded somewhere? Could Tyler Huntley be traded somewhere? But if not, let's say Deshaun goes down again. I mean, those are 2 quality options. But again, that's more divisional talk. I agree. Geno's an interesting one because he didn't necessarily play bad last year. He just didn't play as good as the prior season.
Mm-hmm.
But
he's right at the edge of it for me to where he's kind of...
And his decision-making in general isn't what it was as a young QB. He seems to have fixed that at least. He just wasn't as explosive last year, and I believe he was hurt last year. So I think I'm a little more bullish on Geno. I think all he has to do is have a pretty good season for him to maybe solidify. Who's his backup? Who's his backup now?
Oh my God, I can't think of it right now. I'll tell you in like 2 seconds though. But yeah.
You know, I mean, you can get quarterbacks anywhere. So I mean, yeah, I mean, you know,
Sam Howell.
Okay.
That's right.
Oh, that's right. That's
He got
right.
traded.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah.
Another guy to another place to where like you have a quarterback who's serviceable enough as a backup that I mean we clearly saw him as a starter all year last year. So
yeah, actually, I agree with that with Geno because he's one you really never know. So
all right, so we're going on to tier 4 now, and it's called Young, Wild, and Free. This one is Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, and Bryce Young, all quarterbacks, young quarterbacks who now all have the reins around them. You got Will Levis, who got an offensive head coach, OC from Cincinnati. You've got him receivers around him. You got him Calvin Ridley in the backfield. You got Tony Pollard. You tried to bolster the line too, so you're trying to say, hey, you are the guy moving forward. Let's see you there. Anthony Richardson, obviously, you got rid of Gardner Minshew. He was there. He was playing well before, at least running wise. He was playing well before he got injured last year. So it's now here's the franchise for you. And obviously the Panthers don't have the picks really to move up and ever get a quarterback because they obviously traded a lot to get Bryce Young himself. So the future is just there in Bryce Young. So young, wild, and free. You guys go show us what you can do.
makes sense. Makes complete sense with those three.
Okay. All righty. This is good so far. Classic song. I think remix wise, but anyways, Beyonce Ego, just me and my ego. And I've got in order here. It's Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers. Why I use the word ego is 3 older guys in the league who are still proving themselves. And I've proven themselves in Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers are guys who could absolutely be higher on this list. But I could not mentally put them there with them being each of them over the age of 35 coming off torn Achilles. And I know Russell Wilson had 26 touchdowns, I believe, to 8 picks last year. He's in a new situation in Pittsburgh. We'll see how he does there in Pittsburgh.
What up, Gab?
Absolutely. But I have the team term, they call it ego, because those are 3 guys who do have big egos.
I'll respond to that. I completely skipped on Russ. I think Russ actually deserves to be in that last chance, the lose yourself tier. Because if it doesn't go well for him in Pittsburgh, he's never getting a starting job again. This is for sure his last chance. I could see
title-wise, I agree with you. I think position-wise, I don't think he's 27 or 28. I think he's more in the 20 range. That's why I had him there. But I agree with you with he could be in the lose yourself, because if he doesn't do well now, he's a career backup or out of the league. So yeah, I do agree with that. Because
it's hard for me to put him in the same class as Rodgers and Cousins, because they would have to completely fall off for them to lose their job. Russell Wilson, he's going to have about 4 or 5 weeks to prove himself before it's Fields time. And for all we know, it could be Fields, starting week 1. I don't think that's going to happen, but so it's hard for me to put Russell Wilson in that type of tier. But I get where you're coming from, but I do think he fits more so in the lose yourself, because I do think it's situationally, it's his last chance for sure.
Yeah, he was the leave the door open tier. I also had him there kind of like you leave the door open kind of for him if he can do something. I get it. I felt like he's a little bit better than those young quarterbacks. He's a little better than those older quarterbacks that I named, which is why he is there in that tier. But I completely understand that Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers have much higher potential and much higher upside than they do. It's, again, 2 quarterbacks coming off of Achilles injuries, and I am going to let them make me move them up instead of me trying to predict it. But go on, Timmy, if you have anything to add.
I was just going to say, of those three, Russ is the only one that doesn't have like any upside. It's all, he's going to play mediocre and be a game manager, but he's not going to throw for 4,000 and potentially 30 plus touchdowns. That's not going to happen. But Aaron Rodgers and Kirk, if they've recovered well, they could come right in and it could work out. So
top 10 QB potential in both of them.
Yep.
Yeah. So I could have put them specifically in their own tier and taken Russell Wilson out of it. That's the one guy that was kind of a little tough for me so far. So I could have done that.
An Achilles tier.
Yeah, no, I should have just made an Achilles tier, which is, well, I don't know what I would have. I don't even know what I would have named it. I don't know what.
Something about a tear. I don't know.
I could have named it forever, like a sprained ankle. Boy, ain't nothing to play with, and just gone from there. I don't know.
Yeah. For me, Russ has definitely got to be in a different tier.
I'm okay.
If it were me, but this is obviously your tier, so but I see where you're going with it.
I'm actually, there's no argument. I'm okay with it. All right, so. Next one, this song took the world by storm when it came out. Ooh, Young M.A. And the reason why is because we got Kyler Murray and we got Caleb Williams here. That's 17 and that's 16. These guys are both wildly talented. Obviously, Caleb Williams is a rookie. He's younger than Kyler, but these two are both wildly talented quarterbacks at their position. Kyler, we don't see guys who are that small who can run like him, who has the kind of cannon that does at that height. Obviously, Caleb can throw off all platforms. And both of these franchises feel like they have their guy moving forward. And guys that can make you go, ooh, like, okay. We saw Caleb Williams the other day with when he rolled out the Roman, like he's made so many plays already in preseason where you're like, golly, that's that guy. They got him. Okay. And so I have them there 17, 16. So I have Caleb Williams coming into the league middle of the pack quarterback-wise. We're right at 16 in the dead center. Go on.
That's fair. No argument from me here. Kyler's tough to evaluate, obviously because of his injury and how little he played last year. And it does seem like he's regressed from maybe 2020 or 21. One of those seasons he had a big year.
Yeah, the first year they got Hopkins, he was really good, and then they lost in the playoffs, I believe. Like they got blown out in the playoffs by the.
They started that year like 11-0 or something.
They were really good, and then they like fell off towards the end of the season, and then they got waxed in their first playoff game, and then he was playing too much COD. So
let me double XP weekend.
Let me ask you this: in general, this is kind of the same problem we have with my tier, right? Like my tier was about situation, which is kind of what yours is about too, but it's also kind of a quasi ranking too. So do you have?
Oh, mine's a ranking, which is why Russell Wilson's not specifically lower. So that's the reason.
So you're telling me you're drafting QBs, you got Kyler ahead of both Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers right now? So you take Kyler over Aaron Rodgers on the Pats per se?
Yes, because of the fact that I don't know with Aaron Rodgers yet. He literally could come out week 1 and change my opinion, and I'm putting that there like that's a thing. I just don't know how I trust him at that age coming off an Achilles, and the same with Kirk Cousins. I understand that Kyler has been injury prone, but he's not coming off of that injury. We did see him play at the end of the season. So I would have Kyler over them, but again, if Aaron Rodgers is even 90% of what Aaron Rodgers was before the injury, then I'm taking Aaron Rodgers because that's still a top 10 quarterback in the league. So it really comes, for me, I'm just being very skeptical on these injuries, and I believe it when I see it, and that's how I'm playing it.
Okay. Again, not my tier list at all. The only thing I would do maybe is flip these two before Cousins and Rodgers, but I'd in general
take
probably
Wilson out, flip Caleb Williams, Kyler, Russell, and then Kirk and Rodgers ahead.
Because I see what you're saying, but there's also a world where like Rodgers and Cousins, they're just so good pre-snap that I think we can both agree we're not gonna, especially with Rodgers, we're not gonna see the version we saw of him before. But that line is much improved, and he should be able to hopefully. I can't believe I said hopefully, but I am rooting for at least success for Rodgers. I don't necessarily want to see the Jets do well, but he should be able to pick people apart. And Cousins,
if he can be 2015 playoff run Peyton Manning, then he'll be okay. I mean, they won obviously a Super Bowl because their defense was so hellacious. Not that this Jets defense is as good as that, but this Jets defense is very good. And that Peyton Manning was really pre-snap, not going to really throw picks, and I'm just going to try to check it down when I can. Or I'm going to run for 18 yards against the Patriots on a run random play. Like, what are we doing?
I still have no idea how Peyton made it to the Super Bowl. Even with that defense, he had no arm left. That was one of the most insane games, that AFC Championship game.
We scored the touchdown, and then Gronk on the 2 was so close. That one was a tough one. Yeah, that was my toughest loss. That not Super Bowl.
Especially what came next. Next
43-8 beat down.
Panthers didn't even
promise you the Patriots. No, they might have lost the game, sure, whatever. They don't get beat like that. We saw them come back 28-0 on the Falcons. I promise you, they don't get beat 48-3-8. I'm scared of Cam Chancellor. You watch Julian Edelman eat a Cam Chancellor shoulder and still score a touchdown at the end of the game. Timmy, do you have any more comments before I go on to my next tier?
I got no problem with Kyler being ahead of Russ and Kirk and Aaron. Yep. I think he could put up a really good season this year. Last year when he did play, we didn't really see a lot, but he didn't have a lot. Like Marquise Brown was a shell of himself, and we don't even know if he's going to be good on the Chiefs. James Conner was in and out of the lineup. Like his best target was Trey McBride, who was a rookie tight end. So like we didn't expect a lot from Kyler last year. When he had weapons, when he had DeAndre and he had a healthy team, and Cliff was actually looking like a good offensive coordinator, they put up stats, they put up points, they were winning games. Like I very well could see a path where statistically he's on the same level as Lamar from last year. And maybe that's not an MVP this year, but that's still a very, very good season. This was a down year for MVPs, so like it makes sense.
It sounds crazier than what it is.
Exactly. Like I'm not saying like Kyler's going to be the MVP, but he could be 4,000 total yards and 30 total touchdowns. That would not surprise me. That's not out of the thing.
Because thinking about it last year, because you're like, wait, who's going to think he's going to be an MVP? But Lamar was 3,678 yards, 24 touchdowns, 7 picks.
Exactly. That's not like a crazy season. That's like a pretty average.
That's a pick. That's a touchdown and a half, and then a pick every 2 to 3 games. And I just want to say real quick,
somebody's got to win an MVP type year, you know?
Yeah, it really was. And I just want to say, Kyler, 6 touchdowns to 1 pick over his last 3 games. He ran for almost a combined 100 yards too.
Exactly.
So,
and then they're
starting to get it going towards the end.
Exactly. So he's starting to gel with the new offensive scheme that they've brought in. He has a connection with Trey McBride, and they brought in the best wide receiver in this draft, who could very well be a top 10 wide receiver right out of the gate. Like he's that good. So,
wide receivers, we've seen it before. Like Justin Jefferson was top 10 by week 9, week 10. Like you're like, oh,
Jamar
God,
Chase.
Man. Jamar
week
Chase.
1, you knew exactly who he was.
You're like, yeah, okay. And Marvin, Malik, and Rome Odunze all feel like they have that kind of caliber for sure. Yeah. But next tier is going to be Mo Money, Mo Problems, and it's next Tua Tagovailoa and Trevor Lawrence. These 2 guys got massive contracts. These 2 guys have they have a lot of great qualities to them, but they've also had a lot of things that make you kind of squint your eye like, is that it? Trevor Lawrence, I have a little bit more faith in him than I do in Tua, but both of them is like, can you win a Super Bowl and can you go on deep playoff runs with these guys at the helm? That is the question about both of them. Mo Money, Mo Problems is the title for that tier.
Go ahead, Tim.
I dig it. I mean, I completely agree. I think both of the contracts are kind of like weird to see, but it makes sense. You got to lock up your quarterback before the salary just blooms up to where it's $80 million a year, whatever. Do I think they were worth most money in the league? No, not at all. Neither of them. But they are good quarterbacks that like do separate yourself from the bottom 16 teams in this league. So with Tua, I think could they win a Super Bowl? Maybe. I kind of view him as like an Eli Manning, where like sometimes he's just got poor decision making, but like sometimes he just gets it done, and he's gonna be top 10 in a couple categories this year, whether it's passing yards or passing touchdowns. Hell, maybe it's interceptions. I don't know, but he's going to be up there in a lot of them. He's going to be in contention for some of these. So both of these quarterbacks could get the job done. I don't think they will, but in the perfect scenario, I think they could both get there. They just got paid. So
Yep.
Beautiful tier. This is my favorite tier. Like it's appropriately named, appropriately tiered with those two getting fresh new contracts. Tua, I've never really thought about that, Tim. You said Eli Manning. I mean, he is kind of, I mean, he doesn't get as crazy with the interceptions as Eli. Eli at his best could rival Jameis Winston, but it is kind of that either or factor with Tua where his upside is just, I mean, we've seen it last year. I mean, it was the Miami Dolphins offense total, but 70 points. He anchored that. So, he does have extremely high upside. I mean, we kind of talked about it with my tier list. The Dolphins, everything breaks right. Yeah, he could be a Super Bowl winning quarterback. I don't necessarily feel, with Trevor Lawrence, I mean, if he were to take a leap, which he should at this point, and this year 4 for him, he should take a leap. That should put the Jaguars in contending range. They should be a contending team. If he takes even...
They should make the playoffs this year. They have a better schedule than the Texans do because of the fact that they weren't the division winner. They should be a playoff team this year if Trevor Lawrence is that guy.
Yeah, and it should be as simple as even just for Trevor Lawrence, just getting rid of the dumb turnovers. He's smart. It's not like he's hella turnover prone, but he will have these days where you're just like, what are you thinking, right? It does happen. So even if he could cut down 2 or 3 of those games, that very well could be a division win. That could very well be a 2 or 3 seed for them, maybe even a 1 seed. There's a ton of talent in Jacksonville, so I see where you're going. I will have much more to say about Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars in our AFC South episode. So, yeah.
And just as a quick mid-pod little disclaimer, we're going to be having where we're breaking down all of these divisions as we do with our preseason predictions, but we're going to be doing it a little bit different this year so we can kind of dive into each division and each team even more than we normally do. So when we're alluding to all of that stuff, we're going to be getting to those guys in particular with their situation even more in depth than we are right now in this situation. But
Absolutely.
Next, so just to give you a numbers wise of where we are, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We are at the top 13 quarterbacks now in the NFL. And so this tier, I don't love it. This is the one that was hardest to name, but we're gonna name it. But we're naming it this. We're rolling with it. It's Trust Issues, a song by Drake. Trust issues, and it's Baker Mayfield, Brock Purdy, and Jalen Hurts. And Baker Mayfield, why we have trust issues with Baker, we've seen what he can do. Can he sustain this for multiple seasons? We've seen him obviously take the Browns to a playoff game and get them almost a championship win, to get them a playoff win, to get to the divisional, and they played well against the Chiefs, but they ended up losing. We saw how that ended there. He gets his way down, back up. Now he's with Tampa, gets them a big playoff win. We'll see if you can fully trust him moving forward. Brock Purdy, contract year. Do you really feel like he can be the quarterback to lead you continuously to the championship game and Super Bowls, especially once this roster gets to a point where you can't pay everybody right now, moving forward the next 3 to 4 years after this? And then obviously Jalen Hurts does have the big contract, but we know what's been going on with him and Sirianni. Do Sirianni and the Eagles have full trust in Jalen Hurts that he can get it done? Because right now, the 2022-2023 season that happened looks more like the aberration on his resume than the rest of his career.
Tim, you want to reply or who's going here?
Sure, I'll go.
Okay.
I do have a quick question, Keenan. Out of these 3, who do you trust the most?
It would be Jalen Hurts, which is why I have him ahead of both of them.
That's why I do think Hurts is probably going to prove a lot of people wrong this year. Like, if you did have any trust issues, I think it's going to be kind of mellowed out this year. I think you're going to see a damn near, he's had MVP seasons before, and he could easily do 80% of that and be better than 26 of the quarterbacks in the NFL. So I think he'll get out of this tier during the season. I think you'll see. And then I think somebody that could bump into this tier is Jared Goff. I kind of have trust issues with Jared. I think he kind of disappears in certain games. So I'm interested to see where you have Jared.
Yep. All right, Kyle, you go.
Yeah, I think this is my biggest disagreement so far. I have questions about each quarterback you have in this tier. Let's start with Baker Mayfield. Do you believe Baker Mayfield is better than both Tua and Trevor Lawrence?
Going into right now, yes. If we are saying for the next 5 years, then of course you would take the younger guys, but
I don't know about that.
Right now, I trust that Baker Mayfield's going to play better in a big spot than I do Tua and Trevor Lawrence. I've seen it more.
I wouldn't say any of them are higher than any of them. I think they're all.
And again, here's the thing. Sure, if you want to put them, fine. They're literally 15, 14, and 13. They're not that far apart. They're 15, 14, and 13, the three quarterbacks in question right now.
I see. But I think Baker, to me, is more where Geno Smith was going into last season. It's kind of another prove-it year for me for Baker. I do like the story. I do think he played well. And I do think I will give you this, Keenan. I think consistently he is smarter than both Tua and Trevor Lawrence. I just don't know if I could just straight up say, yes, I would take Baker Mayfield over those two. Again, this is your list,
it would be for a season. It would be a question, obviously, because the potential for Tua and the potential for Trevor Lawrence right now is high. I get it. But going into the season, based off what I've seen and how things you kind of have to foreshadow a little bit. You can't just do it only off of last year. I would right this second, I would take Baker for one season over them. Obviously, if we're stretching it out more than just this season, then I completely agree with you. But
because even let's say even if we're talking for the season, I would have a hard time believing the Dolphins would take Baker over Tua. I have a hard time believing the Jaguars would take Baker over Trevor Lawrence, right? I mean,
I don't think the Bucks would take Trevor Lawrence or Tua over Baker.
I think they would. I think absolutely.
Trevor, maybe. Tua, I don't.
I don't know. If you gave them the option, you're right. That is more of an argument the more I'm thinking about it. But I just think they would take Tua.
Trevor, they're all Florida quarterbacks too, ironically enough. But
ironically, yeah.
Trevor, maybe. Just because you have a little bit more upside. I really don't think they're taking Tua over Baker right now in Tampa, especially off of what he did last year and how he played against the Rams and how he played – no, not the Rams. They did Eagles, and then he played against the Lions.
You might be right. I have a hard time wrapping my head around that, but I see. It is more of an argument than when you just say it like, oh, I would take Baker over these two, right? My reaction would be, no, I would take Tua and Trevor Lawrence, who, by the way, I'm not the biggest fans of. I definitely have questions of each of them. I don't necessarily hate them as quarterbacks, but moving on from that, you're saying questions, you're saying aberration. You're saying this about Jalen Hurts. Are you saying then, so what? If Jalen Hurts were to have, let's say, a so-so season, right? Still rushes the ball well, rushing touchdowns, but the passing leaves a little more to be desired. Are you saying he could be replaced within the next year or two? What do you mean by that?
No, not to the point of replaced contract as a quarterback, which is why he's not towards he's lower. But he's in a situation now where it's can we win with this guy? And then especially in the NFL, you start having those conversations earlier than you do say in the NBA with a star. If they for this year they are below 500 and miss the playoffs, and Jalen Hurts doesn't play great, you have to start asking yourself, was 2022 the Carson Wentz season, where Carson Wentz obviously played well? I know Carson Wentz got injured, and then Nick Foles brought him to a championship, but Carson Wentz has his stats where he's pretty decent to good, and then that one great year. Is that Jalen Hurts, or is Jalen Hurts just obviously in a bad, not great situation last year coaching-wise to where he can really elevate himself and he can be within a top 10 level quarterback year in and year out? You still have to start. This year is kind of where is he going to kind of put himself in?
I guess I'm just not seeing this discourse around Jalen Hurts personally. I'm just not hearing these type of questions, whether it's out of Philly, whether it's in the NFL sphere. I'm not seeing that sort of polarizing discussions around Jalen Hurts. I'm just not. I mean, we definitely saw it down the stretch last year, but that was around the Eagles as a whole. They all kind of fell apart. I think
especially if they start this year not great, I could see a lot of those conversations coming around Jalen Hurts.
But I don't think that,
and that's kind of where I have it's like I kind of have you have to almost a little bit foreshadow with a little bit of obviously last year, so it's kind of just like a mixture of everything rather than just like, hey, this is only this or only.
I hear that, but let's also figure you called it trust issues, right? And like I said, it's apt for Baker because I do think Baker's coming off of a Geno Smith type situation, type season. It's a great story. Wow, we didn't expect this. All right, let's see it again. If not, okay, trust issues. I get it. Jalen Hurts, I don't necessarily see that. I think this is more. We're talking about who's in question here for the Eagles. It's more on Sirianni more than Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts. If it's trust issues, that would mean Hurts has got a year.
Again, I don't love the name of this. I did preface that
for sure.
This is the one I struggle with. No, but no, you're basing it off the name and how the tier is, and that's how it's going to be put out. So you're more than fair to do what you're doing.
Yeah, that would imply that he's kind of on his last chance. And again, this is 2 years removed from a Super Bowl appearance. They were what they start 10-1 last year. Okay, little smoke and mirrors there. All right, I get what you're saying, but I don't think he needs to be in that tier. But my biggest umbrage, Keenan, with this, Brock Purdy, you want to talk about results. NFC Championship where he gets injured and then a Super Bowl appearance. I mean, it's going to be his job. I don't think there's any question about this being his job. So I can't put him in trust issues.
They haven't given him a contract yet.
You
would think they would already lock him up. There's no need to not. If he plays better, they're just going to have to pay him more money.
Maybe they haven't, but I mean, I think they're viewing this as like, this is a quarterback coming into his own. This is going to be year 2.5 really with him, right? Coming in half the season for Jimmy that first year. Yeah, maybe he's not paid yet, but it's not a CD Lamb or a Dak Prescott type situation with the Cowboys right now either. You know what I mean? I think we all agree he's eventually going to get paid. I don't think there's any situation where Brock Purdy is quarterbacking for someone else other than the Niners next year, nor is he losing his job. I'm not familiar with who the backup is right now, but I don't think it's going to be anyone that's contending for his job. So I think Purdy's almost got to be higher. I don't know what's coming up here. I don't know what it's named, but to me, Brock Purdy does not belong.
So, Brandon Allen, Joshua Dobbs, and some random guy. But anyway, it's Tanner or something. I don't even know, some random guy. But
turns out to be the best quarterback of all time.
It turns out to be Tom Brady. But so this. Before I ended up changing it, but before I had these next 3 quarterbacks I'm going to name with Hurts and Purdy, and then I had Baker Mayfield with Trevor Lawrence and Tua. That was how I had it, and then I ended up switching it. But this tier, it's kind of the same name-ish concept, but it's dreams and nightmares. Shout out to Meek. And it's Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott, and Jared Goff. Reason being with all 3 of them is they can play like your best dream. They also can play like a nightmare. We've seen it in all fronts. Justin Herbert has not gotten it done. It doesn't get talked about as much about how like late in games, sometimes, especially towards the end of the season, we haven't seen him make playoff pushes. Clearly, it's been chronicled with Dak, and then Jared Goff, it's just when he sees pressure. And I don't mean like moment pressure, because he actually does pretty well with the moment pressure. It's literally physical pressure. He just doesn't do. But that also changes lives. But that is 10, 9, and 8.
I'll go real quick. I don't know. It's hard when you put it like that because yes, you have questions about Goff, but he did have great success. And I don't know necessarily if they lost last year because of him and the NFC Championship.
Oh no! They didn't lose. Jared Goff played very well last year, but they also have like the best offensive line in the league, so he's not really that protected.
For sure.
I mean, not really that rushed, and because of that, he's able to slice and dice. Like, trust me, I have faith in Jared Goff, and I have faith in the Lions.
I guess I have more so problems than with the title of this, because Dak really falls in that trust issues thing just because he is in limbo with his contract, and we really don't know. Ultimately, they might get it done. They probably get it done, you would think. I think maybe it could be his last year, but I mean, it's also one of those situations where, okay, we get rid of Dak, then what do we got type thing, right? So I think Dak almost has more of a case for trust issues. Dreams and nightmares, Goff, Prescott, and who's the third?
Justin Herbert.
Herbert. Yeah, me personally, I wouldn't group those three together. I think Goff's coming off too successful of a year. I think Prescott's in a tier to himself personally, as far as too good to be, with the guys before him, like a Trevor Lawrence, like Tua, right? He's a little more consistent than them, but he's not as good as, the Josh Allens, the Mahomes. And then Herbert, I think we're all going to see it come to light with Harbaugh, right? I think anybody would have his arrow pointing up right now, even though we haven't seen.
Projection wise, I would say it's going. I would have it going up before it goes down.
And his bad games aren't, as the aforementioned Eli Manning. So I don't know if you get too many nightmares from Justin Herbert as much as like maybe you want a little more, like Trevor Lawrence, right? I don't think you get too many nightmares out of Herbert. So I have more trouble with what it's named rather than where they're ranked. I'm not necessarily mad at the ranking.
Like, these are the people. Okay.
I'm just not sure if Lions fans would say that about Goff. Cowboys fans, I mean, it depends on the day, right, with Dak. And then Herbert, I think, is at least pretty consistent. I do want more out of him in big games, but I think he's at least consistently Justin Herbert.
All right, and go on, Timmy.
I think if you want to talk about somebody that gives me trust issues, you're talking about Dak Prescott.
Name-wise, guys, I don't
definitely.
He's definitely more.
Maybe it's a bad. I do get the title, Dreams and Nightmares. I mean, Dak was playing like he was arguably a top 3 MVP candidate last year. He was on a tear for a long time, but then the playoffs happened, and then there's the nightmares. Like, happens every single year. That's probably why I'd put him in the trust issues category. I get it. Everybody likes Herbert, and they think it's going to be a pretty successful season. I just don't think, from a QB perspective, we're going to be viewing him as a top 10 QB next year, just because statistically he's not going to have it to back it up, I don't think. I think they're going to run a lot. I think he'll be efficient, but he won't be like a 4,000-yard passer at all. And he probably won't have a lot of passing touchdowns. So
interesting. We'll break that down even more when we get to that division. But so I do have a quick question for you guys. Take name out right now. I have Jared Goff 8, Dak Prescott 9, Justin Herbert 10, Hurts 11, Brock Purdy 12. What are your feelings on that? Just the order number itself.
Go ahead, Tim.
I would take Hurts over Herbert. That's probably what I would do. I would just move Herbert to 12. You said.
So it'd be Herbert would go to 11. Hurts would go to 10.
Yeah, that's all I would do, really.
And Kyle, you?
I would say Purdy has to be in the top 10 for me. Even though I do think Herbert has more ability, I think Herbert, it's fair to have him on the outside looking in. I think it's fair to have Herbert in the top 10 even. But if I had to drop one out of that group, I think Goff and Dak Prescott were too successful last year. And, Purdy, I mean, he's getting exactly what Tom Brady used to get early on in his career, right? That's where Purdy is. And Purdy's even giving you more production. I mean, we've seen Purdy push the ball down the field. He's not a game manager. Is he making the easiest reads? Yeah, but that's more of a product of Shanahan. Sure, but he's doing his job, and he's doing it at a successful rate, and at its best, at an explosive rate. So, to me, I think Purdy's got to be in the top 10, just given an NFC championship, given a Super Bowl appearance, right on the door of a Super Bowl win.
Hurts to 12, and then you'd basically – Herbert to 12, and then you'd have Hurts 11, Purdy 10, Dak 9, Jared Goff 8.
Either or,
roughly.
Either or with the 12-11. Wherever you want to put Hurts or Herbert, doesn't matter to me. They're both borderline top 10.
With Herbert.
And like we see every year with the NFL, Keenan, it all really depends on what you've done for me lately. Any one of those guys is a top 10 quarterback, really. Whether it's Hurts,
absolutely.
And I'm actually surprised.
Everybody from 8 to 15 right now. Actually, honestly, everyone from 8 to 17, even Kyler and Caleb, if they really ball out this season, they could get up to top 10 quarterback level. Like between that range, like it could flip. Like Caleb could go all the way up to even this next where we're going to go to next. He could get up close to even here with that. But I just wanted to ask because I know the names were kind of more of the focus, obviously, of how you felt about it, which is fine because that's what the tier list is for, and the names, that's what we're here to talk about. But I was just more so curious if you guys had a problem with their number order or if it was just more so like kind of how they were displayed. Thank you.
Yeah. No, and I would say I'm interested because I thought you'd have Dak a little higher. Even I might have Dak a little higher, and I don't think he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback necessarily. Like I got to see it to believe it type shit with Dak. And then Baker, the only thing I would say about what you just said about the rankings, I don't know if I could see Baker creep up into the top 10.
Yeah,
I think a lot would have to break right, but yeah.
See, like I think maybe he could almost be kind of in like a little of the Jared Goff thing where it was like number one pick kind of has to go find his way a little bit and then comes through and does that. But I know what you're saying. His hot potential is not the same as some of these other guys. But I'm going to move on to the next one, and it is The Way You Make Me Feel. Shout out to MJ, and it's Jordan Love and it's CJ Stroud at 7 and 6. And with these guys, obviously, Jordan Love's been in the league longer, but both of these guys are true one-year starters. Jordan Love played a few games before, but like true first-year starters in full last year. And you love what you saw from both of them. Obviously, both of them got their teams to the divisional round. Both guys showed phenomenal arm strength, phenomenal arm talent, the escapability aspect of both of them being able to make plays with their legs, whether it's rolling out of the pocket. I think it's something CJ should do more this year. And then obviously their situations, we'll talk about. I like both of their situations team-wise this year. But The Way You Make Me Feel, because both of these organizations feel as if they now have their guy. Obviously, they gave Jordan Love the money to be the guy. CJ Stroud obviously cannot get that yet, but when he signed up for it, as long as things don't fall on its face, he'll be doing the same.
My only response, Keenan, would be I wouldn't be mad at Jordan Love being behind maybe Prescott or Jared Goff, just at this moment in time. We'll obviously get to my thoughts more so on the Packers and Jordan Love in full and divisional breakdowns. So I could absolutely see him ending up here. To me, Stroud almost has to be in a tier to himself because it was so unexpected last year what we got out of him. And just because, as me and Tim discussed on the last episode or when we were doing the team tiers, yes, Stroud looks to be the real deal. I don't think there's any, like, he is the real deal, but now there's real expectations, what's going to happen, right? So Stroud, to me, absolutely deserves to be where he is ranking-wise, but I think he's a tier to himself. And then Jordan Love, I agree with you. I think he can be better and maybe even is better than than Dak Prescott and Jared Goff. But coming off last year, I would have them ahead of him, just off of last year. So no real umbrage with your ranking, but
Timmy, how about you?
I think there's like a slight amount of recency bias in it, just because I don't know. I have a hard time statting out quarterbacks and everything, and then saying CJ Stroud and Jordan Love are damn near top 5 quarterbacks, and that's where you got them. You got them like, what, 6 and 7?
Yep.
I think that's potentially a little too high. I think that's their finish if everything breaks right. I think they're probably going to finish down towards this Hurts to Baker tier, like flirting with top 10 QB play. But like Kyle said, there's a lot of expectations for the Texans, so things could go bad pretty quickly. And if Stephon Diggs is starting, cause problems, that could be a problem. You never know. Like, things could go wrong a ton of different ways.
Yep.
And then Jordan Love, we just saw he finished the season really well, but like, you still got to remember that the first 8 games of the season were not amazing games for him. He definitely had
it was up and down.
Very up and down. It was a roller coaster, and he finished really high, and that's why I say recency bias, is because he finished so well, and even in the playoffs, he looked really, really good. In my opinion, I think these guys are going to finish probably right around 12, both of them, and that's not like even really a bold take, I don't think, because I think 12 to 4 is really one big tier, and you can kind of switch them all up, and then those next guys all kind of take a step away from the crowd. But
Mm-hmm. I would semi agree with. I mean, I don't semi, but I would agree with that to an extent. Obviously, you'll see where I have the top 5 when the top 5 gets there. But I get what you're saying. Obviously, you've got a guy in Dak Prescott who has been in MVP talks in multiple years because of the statistics he's put up. Jared Goff just was a few plays away from getting to a Super Bowl. Justin Herbert has gotten his team to the playoffs. Jalen Hurts gotten his team to a Super Bowl. Brock Purdy's come out. So I get what you're saying with all of these guys. I do feel like some of this, again, as you have the statistics and then you also have some projection here too, and weaved in with it. And some of this is projection a little bit off of what you saw with your eyes and then how they obviously played, how they kind of took the league by storm towards the second half of the season, specifically with Jordan Love for the whole year, really with CJ Stroud and how he played. But so I don't hate it because I understand that some people do like to see more body of work with a lot of things. I think NFL quarterback's one things in sports where a good 14 to 16 games really can jump you so many spots. And you've seen it all the time where you'll see a guy like Lamar was decent and then just bumped up to unanimous MVP. And you're like, oh, well, he just went from like top 20 guy to top 2 guy. And you're like, okay. Like you just see that happen in the NFL more than you see it like anywhere, because you don't really see that in the NBA. Typically with the NBA, you go from 20 to 10 to 7 to then you get up there. But yeah.
I agree with both of you. I really can't wait to get into the divisional talk because
I'm excited to see where you guys have things now ranked. Like I'm even more excited.
I cannot wait to like just furthermore go into the Texans and the Packers, because I do think there's a world where I guess they drop to where Tim's talking about, like outside looking in, like sure, especially Jordan Love, I could see it, especially with Goff being in division, right, and Caleb being in division. Okay, then it's semantics. But overall, I do think both of these guys are going to have good seasons. Sophomore slumps, maybe, especially in CJ's case. But again, I think CJ's right where he needs to be because he does have a lot of ability. But also, only difference I would have, not my shit, is have him tiered by himself. I do think he's in a situation where if Herbert year 2, right, if he came in year 2 and his team was loaded like what CJ has, I think that's where we're at with CJ Stroud right now. Really, his only
That's
thing.
kind of how we were with Herbert.
And really,
Herbert was coming off a record-setting rookie season. He still had Mike Williams. He still had Keenan Allen. He still had Austin Eckler coming off of a very good season. And the thing with Justin Herbert is his rookie season, you could argue, was his best season so far.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if CJ Stroud's
kind of dining off it. He's kind of dining off it, for being real.
Yep.
Only difference, obviously, they got rid of Brandon Staley. Herbert had that Staley on his back. That's a friggin' rhinoceros on your back as far as just ineptitude. So
and we'll see if it was just Staley or if it was a little bit of Herbert too with it.
Honestly, Keenan, I mean, Stroud reminds me a bit of Caleb Williams, where I know it's preseason, but Caleb really does look like the real deal already. All right, so now we just need to see it. Now it's like, all right, what are you really gonna do with this, right? Stroud, I said it, about 5 minutes ago. It's really, what are you going to do with this expectations and with this roster around you? You got the head coach, you got the defense, you've got weapons. That's really it. And as we know, the NFL is a schedule game. So I'm completely okay where Stroud is, where he ends up at the end of the season. I think it'll be somewhere between here and the bottom of the top 10. I can't see him falling out of the top 10, but we'll discuss more in about a week. And I can't wait because I want to say more, but I don't want to give away too much about where I got these specific teams.
And then I don't fully love this next tier name, but I got it, and it's the secret recipe, and it's Matt Stafford at 5. Just Matt Stafford by himself.
Interesting.
And it's because I think he's proven himself to show that he's still got the talent. He's still got all the aspects that make him Matt Stafford, even though there's a little bit of questions coming off of his injury the year before. So I have him above those young guys, and he is a step above. Like, the Lions would take Matt Stafford over Jared Goff. The Cowboys would take Matt Stafford over Dak. Like, all of those teams below, I believe, would take Matt Stafford, but he's not the top 4. I think he's really just by himself.
Fair. He deserves to be in a tier by himself. Putting him at 5's tough. It's just he's hard to rank anyway. It's impossible to really rank Matt Stafford.
He's been hard to rank his entire career because
Yeah.
he was kind of like Justin Herbert, where it was like not fully Justin Herbert, but it was like he's just got all this talent and he puts up stats
a lot
but
like
he
Herbert,
doesn't
much like Herbert,
but he doesn't win. But then he went to a situation where he could win and won in his first year.
Yeah,
and so it was
he doesn't necessarily crumble, but he doesn't kill you. You know what I mean? He doesn't
like elevate you to a level like where these where these next four, obviously I can say his name, but Lamar Jackson has been up and down, but these next ones elevate. He wasn't doing that in Detroit, but then we saw him have the big pass against the Bucs. We saw him have the big drive against the Bengals in the Super Bowl where he did take that elevation step, and you're like, okay, no, he really is borderline Hall of Famer comparatively just to being a really good quarterback.
He's not going to melt down, but really the question now is health, really. So,
yep.
And I don't know if he's top 5, but you can't argue that he's not top 5 if he's healthy. So, yeah, health is my only real question with him.
The thing with quarterback is I think you have your top 4, as Timmy was saying earlier, and I'll let you go after Timmy. You have your top 4, and then between 5 and 14, same way, Kyle, you and I will talk with basketball. You got your top guys, and then like in basketball, 9 to 18 can switch on any given day. Like week 4, I could feel like, Brock Purdy, there's no way he can't be top 8. And then, but I could also then feel Justin Herbert. Man, he's right next to Stafford. How is he not? Like, so it's once you have your top 4, and I think like if you argue out of like those aren't your top 4, I think you're kind of a little crazy. And then like from there, you kind of just go. But you go, Tim.
I think when it comes to Stafford, when you ask me, head to head, Stafford versus who would you rather take? There's not a lot of guys that I can pick over Stafford. He's just been so consistent. He's been in so many big moments. The only issue is what Kyle said, his health. Is every single year he seems to either miss a majority of the season and then their season's over, or he misses 3 to 4 games in like a very crucial time period.
Yep.
And it sucks because when he was in Detroit, he was an Iron Man. He did not come out. He won a game with a broken collarbone. He threw a touchdown pass with a broken collarbone. And now he goes to LA and it's like, I tweaked my neck. I'm out 4 to 6 weeks. And it's like that can be the whole season's over because we're in the thick of it and we need Jimmy Garoppolo to come in here and it's buns now. So
yeah.
But when he's healthy, I don't think that there's many guys not named Patrick Mahomes that I can take head to head saying, yeah, I think they're going to outplay him. Like Stafford's the guy. I totally agree with the number 5 overall. I was going to say top 5, but he is
top 5, number 5. I was top 5, number 5. It's top 5, and he is 5.
I can't believe I'm saying this. Just off of last season, though, I think tears aside, just flip the rankings of Dak and Stafford. I'm not mad at moving Stafford down just because of the health of last year and really the last 2 seasons. I think Stafford, in general, I want Stafford over Dak Prescott in a big game. But I do think, don't hate to say it. I was going to say I hate to say it, but I don't hate to say it. But I do think Dak does deserve to be in the top 5. Just off of last season. If we're coming off of last season, I'm taking Dak at 5 over Stafford. Again, I'd rather have Stafford in a big game and in general as my quarterback probably. But I do think Dak would have claim to this spot over Stafford. Just on a what have you done for me lately?
Okay. I don't fully love it because you think of the last moment, you think of playoffs, but obviously he wasn't terrible in that playoff game. But if you're going off a full regular season, Dak was playing like a top 5 quarterback all season long. So, I mean, you're not wrong when you're saying statistically basing it fully off of last season. So I can't really even disagree with that because that's what he was. All right. And then my next tier is not like us. Shout out to Kendrick Lamar. Each of these quarterbacks feel like they're not like us. And it's Lamar Jackson, the way he can run, the way he can maneuver in the pocket, the better he's been getting throwing. It's Josh Allen, his running ability with his cannon of an arm, with his ability to escape the pocket. And then it's Joe Burrow with his precision. It's with his position accuracy, the way he can maneuver in the pocket as well. And he can get you a 3rd and 8 with his legs as well. Those are 4-3-2. Order it in whatever way you want, and I'm not fully mad. I thought to myself with who I ordered, if in a big game, who do I trust against Patrick Mahomes? And it was Burrow, Allen, Lamar in that order. If you want to switch Allen and Burrow, again, I have zero problems with it.
Go ahead.
But I think these guys are all together.
I agree. I mean, I think these guys are the top, the cream of the crop. These are the best players, best quarterbacks in the league. So you can't really put them 4-3-2 in any order and say that's the wrong order. Like these are going to be the best guys. They're going to be the most consistent guys. The guys with the best chance at winning Super Bowls. So I agree.
Yeah, Lamar's like, hey, I got 2 MVPs. They don't have any. Joe Burrow's like, hey, I beat the guy who's the best quarterback in the league in his building. Josh Allen's like, hey, I've put up the best numbers out of all of you guys in the playoffs and against that guy. So it's like, what can you really can't say much about each of them and what they've done. So, Kyle, you give your thoughts before obviously I reveal just the title of who this number one guy is.
Yeah,
just the title.
Exactly what you guys said. I'm going to echo pretty much what y'all said. I mean, you could rank them any sort of way, and you have an argument either way for any one of them. Burrow, I agree, he'd be the top choice to say, hey, we're going against Mahomes. Now we got, as we discussed before in the tier rankings of the teams, you've got to question his health now. It sounds like
fair enough.
Sounds like that wrist injury is a one of one. Like football players have never had it, or quarterbacks have never had it. It's kind of crazy. So you have a real question with Joe Burrow about his health. Cool. Other than that, yeah, I mean, we expect him to win a Super Bowl at some point in his career. Lamar, he's in the Peyton Manning tier now, where Peyton Manning was, after his MVPs.
Exactly.
Can you deliver in a big game? We saw in the divisional round, he played like complete ass in the AFC Championship game. Just wasn't himself. His decision-making wasn't there. I think we wanted to see more scrambling out of him. It was just a different version of Lamar Jackson than what we were used to. Much like, again, early Peyton Manning in those postseason games. So he's in that tier. He's got a fair claim for number 2 with 2 MVPs. And Josh Allen, it's almost, my only question with him really is, can he shed the Buffalo curse? Because the turnovers haven't really popped up at key situations.
No, especially in big games, the turnovers have not been there. It's more so regular season moments, weirdly, with him. But like in the big games, like against the Chiefs, you don't think back like, he made the mistake. Right. Like I can't, like other than against the Texans, and it wasn't even technically like that lateral, but other than that, he really hasn't made the playoff mistake yet. Where you're like, oh man, that game's on Allen for not doing something. The only game, but that was against the Bengals. He didn't play great, but the Bengals were just a better team that day. That was really that was his only bad loss in the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing you can really say last year was the play calling when you're in plus territory. Maybe take some clock out of it. Maybe run the ball a little bit there, than taking shots at the end zone, or taking more favorable passing options than shots at the end zone there. Whoever you want to put that on, Josh Allen or the OC, I'm fine with. But yeah, I mean, Josh Allen, it's just, can you clear that hurdle? Can you get to the championship game and then to Super Sunday? That's really it with Josh Allen. But, you could, just like y'all said, you could rank them 2, 3, 4, doesn't matter.
No one man should have all that power. It's Patty Mahomes at number 1. It's power. I had me, myself, and I, De La Soul, thinking just him by himself. That was between those two. But then I thought to myself, I'm in the 21st century doing something mean to it. Do it better than anybody ever seen. I mean, that can calm down. It's Brady. But no one man should have all that power. At the top, it's clearly Patty Mahomes. Duh. 2-time MVP. Looking like he could possibly be favored to win a third. 3-time Super Bowl champion. Trying to three-peat. There's not much you can say bad about him. He's played like I combined 7 bad games in his career. So like he's doing okay. It's really, when he sees the go or the second half against Burrow, who is the baby Tom Brady. So basically if he sees Tom, it's a little sketchy for him at times, but otherwise he's pretty much fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's too bad you didn't name it Me, Myself, and I, because it could have been the De La Soul / Beyonce tier, I guess.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say because I was thinking Beyonce. Because I like the Beyonce song better than the De La Soul song, actually. Even though both of them are really good.
Shouts to De La Soul. Yeah, man. I mean,
De La Soul.
I'm only gonna take this time to acknowledge the behind the back pass from yesterday. I love that. If he does that in the regular season, he's a true sicko, and might elevate him in my personal QB list, like to number 2, just off if he does that in a regular season game. That's some sick shit. That's some sick shit to pull in a game. Very disrespectful. Love Mahomes. Mahomes, we've done this comparison a million times, but he really is Steph Curry. He really is. Hey, this year with the Chiefs and going forward, I mean, it really is going to be the closest thing we're ever going to get to the Patriots. He's young enough. Who knows what they're going to build the team like in the years to come, but this is going to be as close as possible to the Patriots from here going forward. So I'm excited to see what this looks like.
That's what I'm most looking forward to. I'm like, and I want to know what's going to be like. I mean, obviously, I want to go through every season, but I want to know like 4 years down the line when Kelsey's retired. It's a completely different regime. He probably doesn't have Andy Reid anymore at some point. Well, obviously, while he's playing, I don't think Andy's coaching until he's close to 85. And so it's going to be like, well, what is Patrick Mahomes going to look like without Andy and out Travis Kelce? Disclaimer, he's going to be fine. But I'm just interested to see like how like the playoff runs and how he does without those two juggernauts. The cool thing with Tom Brady is he had Bill Belichick for 100% of his New England run. Obviously, he had Bruce Arians when he went to Tampa, but he had Bill Belichick the entire time there. And Mahomes is going to have a split between Andy Reid and someone, unless Andy Reid's like, you know what, I'm going to ride it out with this guy.
How old is Andy Reid? Mahomes is what, 27 right now?
Yes. Andy Reid like is 66.
Damn.
Oh, so Andy Reid's got time.
Yeah,
if he wants to go to 80, if he wants to go to 80,
he could get there.
He could get there.
Honestly, he's the kind of guy who might like what Steve Kerr is doing right now.
Andy Reid's a young.
When
66.
Steph's gone, I'm gone. It could be like the second Patty says I'm done that year, I'm out. But until then, or he'll just like drop down to offensive coordinator or be like just a president and just overlook everything.
Andy Reid
go into like that Pete Carroll role and just overlook everything, but still have his hands on the organization.
Andy Reid's got a sniper set up for as soon as anything bad happens in the Homes. Just take me now. Just take me now.
Hey guys, right here. Come on. Take me out. Timmy, is there anything you want to add about Patrick Mahomes?
Tried to look up the definition of a baby goat. They just call him a kid. So you can call him the kid because he's going to be the goat eventually. So.
Hey, calm down with that.
Nope, I ain't calming down with that. He's already on goat. He's on better goat trajectory, man.
Yeah, no, he's right. Him and Tom Brady, like Tom Brady's second half of his career, they're on like the same trajectory. Like they've been doing really well.
Right.
Yeah,
Toby
cool.
Maguire was
I mean, just
when he three-peats and he's got the thing that Tom Brady never did, there you go. It's bombed.
Okay, and then Tom Brady has another hand he has a problem with. So like that's the problem. It's okay.
Mahomes will double three-peat. Back up.
Okay, if Mahomes Jordans, then I'm gonna be like, you know what? I love Brady.
Even then, Keenan's gonna be like, yeah, but Brady played till he was like 40 something. There's gonna be one thing after it.
I'm just not the guy. I hated it when we were like, LeBron just won his first chip. Oh, he's right there with Mike. No, he's not. You can have that conversation now. He's done enough now to where if you want to sit down and be like, there's a legitimate argument to be made that LeBron's better than Mike, you could have the argument now. Not after.
Tim is right, though. Tim is right. Nobody's had the trajectory that Mahomes has had. He is going to be in a completely different judgment going forward. He's only going to be judged against Tom Brady. He's
only chasing Brady.
It is going to be annoying because it literally is going to be exactly like LeBron's post-championship career where like you couldn't even enjoy it because that's all anyone wanted to talk about was fucking MJ. And that's what it's going to be with Mahomes. Luckily I don't think Mahomes is going to be jumping team to team. So it's not, it's going to be pretty clear what happens with Mahomes. He's going to be on the Chiefs. He's either going to win or lose. We're going to see it with this three-peat attempt. Only the Pats and the Niners, I believe, have really had a chance to go for it. Maybe the Cowboys too. I'm not really sure where they're back-to-back.
Cowboys, I think the Steelers might have. I don't know.
Yeah, because the Cowboys might have fallen apart right after their repeat. I can't remember, but
yes, because that was when history. I want to say because that was
literally the rest is history when it comes to the Cowboys.
Yeah, I was gonna say I want to say that they the Broncos. The Broncos had the chance to three-peat as well.
Elway was gone though. Elway retired.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying they had the chance to three-peat. Just teams that have been in the situation.
I mean, a true chance. No one's had this true chance, I think, aside from the Pats and the Niners, and like you said, maybe the Steelers. We'd have to look that up, because I think everything fell apart for the Cowboys after they repeated.
Steelers went back-to-back in 95, 96. The Dolphins went back-to-back in 95, 96, 75, 76. And then the Dolphins went back-to-back in 73, 74. Green Bay, 67, 68. But Dallas went back-to-back in 93, 94, and then they lost to San Fran because I believe that was when Dion went from the Cowboys to the 49ers and basically just swung the pendulum from the Cowboys winning Super Bowls to then the 49ers winning Super Bowls.
So the Cowboys did have a real shot. Cowboys had a real shot.
Yeah.
So the Niners never went back-to-back in the 80s?
They went 89-90. I'm kind of just scrolling through with my eyes right now. 89-90, and then the Giants got there, and then it was the NFC East over the Bills for 4 years.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, so
I cannot wait.
I don't have the same football knowledge I do with basketball. With basketball, I would have just had all of it off the top of my head. I need to get better with my deep NFL knowledge. I got it from 2000, but I got to get better with the 90s and the 80s. But basketball-wise, you can pretty much just get me from the ABA, and I got you.
You guys can't see it because the tears are inside of my cheeks right now. I'm crying on the inside, but I'm so happy that the next time I see the two of you, we're going to be talking divisions, and we're really going to get to the meat and
again,
the potatoes.
Kyle, from tears of joy to tears of joy to tears of joy, man. I tell you.
Tears of joy. Keenan, golf clap on your tier list. I like it. I disagreed, which I like with some of it, but I agreed with the majority of it. So that's a great tier list, in my opinion. The titles were great, too. Yeah. And what can you say? Shocker with the number one spot, but, what can you say?
Yeah, I really should have named the number one spot, too, just because we were talking Luda last time. But overall, the top four wasn't a shock, and really the order wasn't even too much of a shock. It's just kind of just where you have it. The real conversation with quarterbacks happened from 6 to 14, 6 to 15 roughly, is where you have your real conversation with quarterbacks. But in the game right now, I think you have four truly elite, Matt Stafford, and then from there, guys either working to be elite or are very good. Because I'm not calling C.J. Stroud or Jordan Love elite after one season. You got to get a little bit more under you. If they get another season like last year, then sure, they can be elite. But yeah. Alrighty, but as Kyle said, next time we reconvene, we're going to be getting into our NFL predictions with his eye ducts filling with tears of joy right now. Thank you, Timmy, for being here. Obviously, always love having you on. Of course, Kyle, this was the Warner Brothas Podcast. Go check out Kyle's team tiers as well. We plugged at the beginning, plugged in. Go check out those team tiers. Be on the lookout for all of the content we'll be dropping about the NFL preseasons here. It is Christmas in August. Christmas in Harlem right after autumn falls. But this was the Warner Brothas Podcast. We appreciate all of you, and we'll see you guys soon.